All right, Billy D with another exciting podcast here on a kind of a gloomy September morning in Newport Beach with one of my greatest friends in chiropractic. I'm proud to call him a colleague, an associate, and fellow chiropractor, Dr. D. Harrison. Good morning. Say good morning to everybody. And before I forget, this podcast is sponsored by our friends over at Vox Life. My friend Jay Dollywall, who stepped up to plate big time at CalJam, supporting us in our mission to spread the chiropractic message to the world, baby. Good morning, Deed.
Hey, good morning, Billy. I'm happy to be on here, and good morning to everybody out there.
Good. Well, I just want to have a quick, candid conversation here with you for about 30 minutes, but I just spoke at a conference called RadFest about life extension, and I know chiropractic, and I know your work's all about increasing lifespan of the spine, which obviously is going to increase the lifespan of the individual. But I wanted to kind of pick your brain on, I know there's a lot of research out there, and I know a lot of research, and you're the most researched chiropractor in the history of chiropractic, correct? Most published. Just say yes.
I'm close. I haven't counted, so I don't want to be that dude that gets it wrong, but I'm up there. I'm in the top 5 for sure, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, I say you're number 1 in my book. But what research can we utilize to portray to the general public about how chiropractic can create life extension? I know you just did, wasn't your group the ones that has just published a paper about a hypothesis that increases telomere length? Are you there?
Yeah, that we ever have done and that has ever been done.
Hold on. For some reason, I'm losing you. Are you connected good or
okay.
what? Okay, go ahead. Start.
Yeah, I've got good. Okay, it's we just did the first ever publication in chiropractic on does chiropractic corrective care improve telomere length?
Okay, good. And how did that? And I know what it came out, but just go over for the audience.
Yeah, it came out a significant and the beauty of the case was she didn't change anything in her lifestyle and diet other than starting corrective chiropractic care.
Okay.
And perfect. So what we can conclude with this case, it's only a case study of one, but we can conclude that somebody that doesn't change anything in their life but adds corrective care with CBP technique, it was standard chiropractic adjusting and then curve correction and posture correction of the cervical spine, that this may actually increase telomere length. We call it a temporal association. So it's associated in time to changing what she did. So okay. Her change was corrective care, and this changed telomere length, which is not really supposed to change unless you do something good or bad. So if you do something bad, your telomeres will shorten. If you do something good, your telomeres will lengthen. Right. And so, we get excited about a case study, but you got to realize we can't make cause and effect about this in the general population. What we can say is it seemed to be a benefit for her. And now the cool thing is we've got some bigger projects underway, like randomized trials looking at this.
Okay, cool. But you can also say that we hypothesize. I've hypothesized that from the beginning. Anything that's going to promote greater homeostasis in the body is going to, number one, probably prevent telomere breakdown, but also at the same time maybe have a tendency towards lengthening telomeres.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That's also correct. In that study, you also talked about dysautonomia. Am I saying that word right?
Yes.
And what is that about? Just taking somebody out of sympathetic and put them more in parasympathetic?
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. There's a lot of generalized side effects of somebody that has sympathetic dysautonomia, right? So, people can have, blood pressure problems, people can have pupil problems, dilation problems, people can have sweating problems, things like that. And so it's a number of things. You can have, tachycardia and on and on. So
wasn't there a test that we did too with salivary amylase or something? Was there a test?
Yeah, well, that's how we checked her telomere length.
Oh, okay. That's how you did that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's through a salivary test, right? So you're either going to do it through saliva, or you're going to do it through blood, or you're going to do it through some other active cell.
Okay, cool. And I know in the past, one of the other things I talked about is HRV. What's your feeling on HRV?
I think HRV is a great, administrative test. It lets you know that there is a problem with the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
Basically, it's not an indicator of exactly what is subluxated and what's wrong with the spine, but it's an indicator that there's something, a systemic effect, right?
Exactly. So again,
So
it could also just show like a temporal over time effect improvement over it. You're not looking like, I look at it kind of like blood pressure. Some days some person might be under a little bit more stress, and other days blood pressure is going to be obviously higher.
that's right.
But I think if you do kind of a graph over a period of time and see a general improvement in blood pressure, we could assess that help take that person out of sympathetic and put them more in parasympathetic.
That's right. And here's the thing in chiropractic, we have to remember that these, exam procedures, these diagnostic tests, they're not the subluxation, they're the side effect. They are potentially the consequence of the subluxation. It's not where you are subluxated, but it's a diagnostic test that says, hey, there's a problem.
Right. And again, I think with the work that you're doing, it's not like a specific level, like you just see one and you're going to lower blood pressure. I think it's improvement in posture and global alignment that really is giving us that benefit.
Yeah, and that's true and kind of not true. I mean,
Okay.
in CBP, the focus is the global overall posture and the alignment of the curves. But when there is an upper cervical problem, like
Oh, of
if you
course.
truly, yeah, we think that we try to mix the best in segmental chiropractic with the best in corrective chiropractic. That's what we try to do.
Okay.
And so, I take nasiums. If there's an upper cervical problem, hey, I'm the first one to correct that damn thing.
Okay.
Right?
What else was there? Another thing I talked about was it's an old study that's the study they did with HIV patients and the CD4 cells.
Yeah.
Again, I heard I don't know if I was talking to Tempo or somebody else, but that study was a valid study, and then they wanted to do a more broad study, and then I guess that whole thing was closed down because the effects of the adjustment were so beneficial to these patients. They didn't want to come out and actually prove that chiropractic improved immune function.
Yeah, it can be kind of crazy. There's always political pressure when you get involved in studies like this. I'm familiar with that study. I remember reading it in the 90s, and it was by the Atlas Orthogonal Group, right? It was the upper cervical work. And I think it's great research. The problem with old research is we didn't really do a good job with proper statistical analysis and study designs. And I say we, I mean every researcher in the world.
Right.
And we just didn't know. And by today's standards, some of those older studies, they don't, basically they don't stand the test of time because they don't have the proper, robust, number one, sample size, number two, the type of statistical analysis. But those are things that, we as the profession need to overcome. And if there is political pressure, you got to go, it's par for the course. I can take it. Let's move forward. I mean, shit, I get more. I'm sorry, I'm swearing.
You can swear all you want on my show, dude. I'm the worst. You and me, that's what I love about you the most, that you and I have the same vocabulary.
Yeah.
So.
And it just comes to mind because, it's like I've had more papers rejected at journals than I have had published. They eventually get published, but there's some journals don't want to touch your work because they're afraid of the ramifications or
the repercussions they're going to have from it, right?
That's right. That's right. I've had journals, top journals, reject me because insurance companies wouldn't pay for the type of care that we're providing. That was their reason for rejecting the study. The study's top notch, but you're going to reject it because you think an insurance carrier won't reimburse for it. You want to talk about horseshit? That's horseshit.
Yeah, that's horseshit. And I'm going to come back to something that's very political in a little bit, and I want to get your opinion on, but I'm going to save that for later. Okay, so we've got telomere length, we've got balancing the sympathetics, and then using HRV to show that. We've got CD4 cells, which I think that would be a great study. And again, if you come to, it's just common sense. If you're increasing homeostasis in the body, balancing the body, taking a person out of sympathetic and more into parasympathetic, you're going to increase immune function. I mean, that's just obvious to me.
Yep.
What else? And then I read another study, and again, this is probably a sample size. What is a normal sample size that's considered legit these days? I know a lot of these other studies were like 50 people and stuff. I mean, and obviously your little test that we did with a one uh, clinical case that you had where the lady had improved telomere length is not obviously big enough. But what is the standard these days as far as sample size?
Yeah, here's the problem with that question. It's a great question, but there is no number that fits every study. It
Right.
depends on what is your outcome and what type of test are you using to categorically define that outcome. So, like when I look at curve correction, at what magnitude of curve correction is it statistically significant in a population that I do CBP care versus no care? Well, that one's a little bit easier. When we do a pilot project, I can get data. I can say, oh, the average curve change is 10 to 15 degrees. And so then what we have to do is we have to plug that into what's called a power analysis sample size statistical program. And it's just an equation. You plug it in, and then you plug in your outcome. And then it'll tell you approximately how many subjects you need in each group to make sure that is a statistically significant change.
Wow.
And now if I use a neck disability index to try to say curve correction improves neck disability index, that becomes a little more challenging because you have to identify what's called a MCID on the neck disability index. And that's a minimally clinically important difference, which is very different than a statistically significant difference. Mm-hmm. It is like when is somebody actually better on an NDI? If it's 4 points or 5 points, that's statistically significant, but it doesn't really mean anything to the patient. You follow this?
Yeah.
So sample size has to take all these into account. You have to look at an MCID. You have to look at the suggested or the projected type of change in your curve variable, and you plug it into equations, and you'll get anything from some studies it's 15 subjects in each group. And other studies, it's 100 subjects in each group. And then other studies, you need 1,000 subjects in each group to be able to properly calculate odds ratios and relative risks. So it actually is very variable.
Where did you learn all this? I mean, just from actually being active, or was it something you learned from your dad? Or
yeah, that's a good question.
Your head get big, but you're a smart MF. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've never really had any huge desire, to do any research like you do. And I'm glad you do it because there's so many things that we know are outcomes of the glorious work that we do. We just need to have substance and data to support that so that we can push that back in these people that want to reject the chiropractics. And some people don't even accept it for back pain. Obviously,
yep.
Yeah. So
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I was kind of thrown into the frying pan by my father, man. I had a pretty decent math background in undergrad and such. I had one course in statistics, but working with the team that I've been able to work with over the last 25 years or so. See, 20. No, that's a stretch. 23 years. They were top-notch people, and
I remember when you were a freaking kid, dude.
Yeah. Yeah,
and you were crazy. I used to go to your dad's seminars, and you'd be bopping around in there, and I go, "Who's this little punk?" And he was a smart motherfucker,
Yeah, well, I had to make sure it was.
Let me ask you this real quick too. When did you know that you were going to be a chiropractor? What age was that?
I always thought I was going to, but it wasn't until I gave Dan Murphy a ride from my dad's house in Wyoming to the Salt Lake City airport when I was still in college. Dan, I think I was 20 years old or 21, and he would remember this if you brought it up to him, because I drove him to the airport with my girlfriend at the time, and I took him down there, and he's like, "What are you doing with your life, Dean?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Look, you're a sharp dude, and I want you in chiropractic." And I was rebelling against my dad at that time.
Of course.
Your
so dad
Dan
was a
kind of
cookie too, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So Dan kind of gave me the push that I needed to go over the edge.
Yeah, cool.
And so it was really 21 years old. But real quick, I just want to acknowledge the support team, Billy, that I've had behind me, the statisticians, the researchers that I've worked with. They make me look good. If I don't know something, they know it or they guide me.
And who's on
know,
that support team? Why don't you give some names out?
well, it goes back to the early days with a famous statistician, Bert Holland. He was from Temple University. He's deceased now, but he's literally in, if you could call it, the Statistics Hall of Fame. Bert was a full professor in statistics, tenured professor at Temple. He wrote many books. So I would ask him a question, and instead of answering it, he would send me a fucking book. And you know, it would be a graduate level book. And I'm like, Bert, I haven't had any of these courses. And he's like, you'll figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
So he was one. And then, of course, my father is at the top of the list. And then there was my dad's PhD advisor and mathematician, Dr. Tad Yannick. Anything with math modeling and engineering, he would guide and direct me in the early days. And then the famous Tony Keller, the PhD in mechanical engineering. He was from the University of Vermont, a world-renowned biomechanist. He did the same thing. He basically took me and Chris Kaloka under his wing, and more so Chris, but me quite a bit too, because Tony and I connected on biomechanics. And Rene Caillet, the famous physiatrist, great asset to what we did. And then my new colleagues that I've been working with for the last decade over in Cairo, Egypt, Ibrahim and his wife Aliyah, they're amazing, and they're PTs, but they're PhDs. They're at Cairo University, and we've been doing some amazing work. They're highly interested in spine alignment and corrective care, which is a breath of fresh air coming from the physical therapy community. You know what I mean?
Right. And what's so, both you and I are we can be polarizing, obviously. Probably me more so than you. But you get so much, I don't want to say hate, but we get a lot of detractors. And the thing is, all you're trying to do is prove what we do works, I mean, and they want to call you mechanistic or not vitalistic or whatever it is, and I don't give a shit, be honest with you, because I've realized that from the very beginning that you're never going to make everybody happy all the time. So just do what you're going to do anyway. So, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I'm damned if I cuss, I'm damned if I don't cuss. So it's just like, I'm just going to be me and do what I'm going to do. And whether people like me or not. Do you feel a lot of that, or how does that affect you as far as, go ahead and laugh.
I'm laughing because I'm going through it right now, Billy. With the stuff that I put out on the ACA, and you're always going to get the hate mail on one side of the equation, and then you get your supporters.
Right.
And
well, how could anybody give you shit about that? I mean, that's obvious to me. I mean, I don't understand how somebody would want to adjust somebody's spine without knowing what the bones look like. To me, I want to see the integrity of what I'm dealing with,
Yeah.
And I want to know if there's disc decay and shit like that.
Yep. That's right. You don't know what anybody's spine looks like until you take a look at it, man.
Right. It's just like, I'm not going to work on somebody's car without opening the fucking hood. Come on, man.
I know. Dude, it's the craziest thing ever. And people go, oh, well, there's got to be biomechanical indicators to take an x-ray. I'm like, you have no freaking idea what you're going to see. People will lie to you. People will not tell you about the accidents and injuries they have. I've had former chiropractors try to get me to work on them in my office, knowing full well that they had contraindications to certain types of care, like very unique types of surgical procedures down in their low back, trying to hide it from me and wanting me to, go ahead and jump on their back and then, potentially injure them and then turn around and sue me. I'm not kidding you. I've had that happen.
I believe it 100%.
Don't do it.
And here's the deal. I don't understand. What is the big deal about taking a freaking x-ray? I mean, look at this world we live in. We're in a sea of Wi-Fi every day and radiation and cell phones and people eat shit food. And then you want to do one thing that's going to give you so much information and they don't want you to do it. I mean, I don't even understand that. And the other thing, here's the bottom line, is when people come to me, they expect me to take an x-ray. In fact, if they've been to a chiropractor that didn't take an x-ray before, that's one of the main reasons they left, because they didn't feel they were at the standard of care. And what is the big push for not taking x-rays?
Well, I'm a conspiracy theorist. So
like I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. I think
I think I
I
have the
th-
crown for that. I'm way ahead of you on the
yeah,
conspiracy theory.
you totally are. I'm internally a conspiracy theorist, so I personally think it's just nothing more than money and power inside the profession, and it can be traced back to the bigger organizations in the profession. It can be traced back to managed care organizations. There's that old saying, "Follow the money trail."
Right,
There,
right,
it's always about money. Here's at the end of the day, if we allow X-ray in practice as a gold standard for assessing the spine, you cannot argue with what you see on an X-ray. It's either there or it's not there.
right,
So the only thing you can argue is, what does it mean?
right,
Well, they want to take away the what does it mean and just take away it's not even there. Because
right,
if they don't allow X-ray, then you can't prove it's there.
right.
Right? It's like a reverse cervical curve. It is either there or it's not. And I can prove it to you on an X-ray, and you are absolutely insane if you're going to argue with me on it.
Right, right.
Now, the only thing you can argue is, what does it mean? And the literature is really clear now. There's some literature is really clear. It means that the person has some type of potential future problem or current problem with health, pain, disability, etc. So
Exactly.
they would just want to cut off the foundation, because then they don't have to pay for anything that follows. That's
Right.
that's my idea.
Yeah, and
The rest
that's a
of it's
great
just bullshit
assessment.
excuse.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
I mean, if
Yep.
somebody like
But real
when people come in my practice and they don't want an X-ray, I go, okay, let's go through the assessment. Why don't you want an X-ray? And as they're holding their cell phone to their head, or I know what people eat, or they're drinking a Diet Coke, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Don't give me the health reason. That's just your excuse because you don't want to pay for the X-ray. So,
Yep.
all right,
Yeah. Wait real quick.
yeah,
We I had to write with my colleagues a really in-depth rebuttal to this ACA position statement, and I'm still working on it. The problem is this could go viral, and bigger organizations could pick up this ACA concept, right? So I was asked by the ICA to write up a position statement to counter the ACA and to see what the actual evidence says. And we decided to submit it to a peer-reviewed journal. I won't say where, but it's really going to kind of stir some shit up. You want to talk about creating some controversy? This publication will create some controversy. And in there, at the end of it, we have referenced material that says you're 30 times more likely to have a health disorder from eating your dessert at night than you are from having an X-ray.
exactly. That's what I say all the time, bro. Let's go back to our discussion on the. What about pro-inflammatory markers? I know I saw a study somewhere on that chiropractic reduces pro-inflammation in the body.
Yeah, I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't remember the exact study, but there are, that I'm aware of. There's a few basically blood lab studies showing that we are reducing, the precursors and the, like you said, the biochemical markers for inflammation. And it goes, from substance P to metalloproteinases and things like that. And if we can basically minimize those, which are very catabolic, they're going to destroy and break down tissue, and maximize the anabolic activity, then we're going to have a positive benefit on people for
Right.
sure. I think more work needs to be done on that, but I do know that there are studies that show that chiropractic intervention is capable of having an effect on those markers.
Cool. So I'm speaking about the truth about cancer coming up here in a couple of weeks in Orlando, hopefully. So I'm going to take a lot of this info right here and use that as just criteria why. And again, chiropractic doesn't cure shit, as I tell people. What chiropractic does is raises the level of your innate expression and obviously immune competence, in my opinion, to not treat the cancer, but they allow the body a stronger immune system so I can cure the cancer itself. Do you have anything else you could add to that list for me?
Boy, that's a big one. I think my general knowledge is more like this, Billy. It's like when we look at health and longevity, one of the biggest things that we can do for somebody is sagittal plane profile rehabilitation. We now know that, for example, people that have increased thoracic kyphosis, this impairs cardiopulmonary function. We know that. Well, cardiopulmonary function, that's oxygenation into the tissues and oxygenation into the system.
That's a good one.
Well, yeah, and this is the big one because you follow the chain, and people are way better than me at following this chain of events. But if you're not oxygenating properly, you're going to produce more free radicals. You're going to have less antioxidant power, and you're going to get the system to break down. So
plus, cancer thrives in an anaerobic environment, right?
That's right. Well, there you go. And to me, it's not a direct cause and effect, but it's a chain of events that I can show data that says, hey, when I'm altered in my mechanical alignment, specifically in the sagittal plane, that totally impairs the ability of the cardiopulmonary system to function at optimum efficiency. And you can just do simple tests with people, put your head forward, slouch, and try to respirate and see how effective it is.
Right.
And in fact, we know it's linear. The further forward your head goes and the more hyperkyphosis you have, the more linear decrease you have in the strength of the respiratory musculature and the respiratory output and input.
Right. And when somebody's in sympathetic too, doesn't that alter respiratory function to some degree too?
Oh, absolutely it does.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's shallower breaths, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. You just think about that when you get excited or nervous. You're breathing and your heart rate goes up, and it's very difficult to persist, right?
All right, let me ask you a controversial question now. Not that I would ever do anything like that, and we might have to go over a few minutes on this one. I've got really big into the cannabis. From a researcher, what's your viewpoint on medical cannabis as an adjunct for maybe decreasing inflammation, its neuroprotective, neuroregenerative capacities? Obviously, it's got some anti-tumor. It's got a lot of things. But from a research standpoint, what's your basic opinion on it?
Yeah, twofold. I wish I would have read all the papers my good friend Jason Haas sent to me. I've read a couple of them, and I'm in favor of it for the right people.
Right.
I think that we've all had people in our lives that have been the wrong people, that get highly addicted to this stuff, and it really does impair their mental function. I know a few colleagues that I can tell you that everybody that knew them knows that they got screwed up because of it. But then I have other colleagues, I won't mention names, but they actually do very well on it.
Right.
And
I think I would fall under that category personally. Not to use any names, but right. And again, I don't look at any different than somebody having a glass of wine personally. But I'm not talking about the psychoactive components of marijuana, because of the stuff that we promote in what we have a line right now called innate CBD or innate hemp. It's hemp, which means there's only minimal. It's 0.3% THC, so it doesn't have any psychoactive effects, but it's got known clinical effects. I mean, and the miracles that you see are irrefutable with people with stage 4 cancer that the doctors have written off, and then they start taking the shit, and all of a sudden all their biomarkers and everything improves, and they have no more cancer. I mean, I just look at what we're doing currently in the system, which is chemo, radiation, which is the gold standard. It's so antiquated and old, and I that's why I want to talk about chiropractic as a form of not treating the cancer, but I want and so that's what I talked about at the RadFest with the longevity conference. It's like everybody needs a chiropractor. And before we end, I want to talk about the Denerol. So from that standpoint, negating the psychoactivity components of it. I mean, obviously, I know people that have drank booze and fucking died, which is what happened through my brother. So I know people that eat sugar and shit that freaking get diabetes and they die from that. So you can't just say, okay, well this, you can take a potato, you can make vodka out of potato. It's not the potatoes bad, it's the person that utilized the substance and abuse it. Yeah, I get that. You can abuse anything, man. You can abuse sex, gambling, all those things. Yeah. But those are more fun, but and I'm not a gambler, so.
No, for me, I'm pro anything that has proper evidence that's going to help people. And I really think that basically the hemp oil, the cannabis oil shows that. I think it's great. I think that there's people that have read way more about it than me, Billy.
Yeah, so
But
that's what I've been doing, a ton of reading, because I mean I know I'm going to take some big arrows for this one.
oh yeah, yeah. You know what? You should have a good friend of mine on a podcast and just talk about that, because literally that's one of the things that he reads everything on.
Who's
And
that?
it's his name is Jason Haas,
I know Jason. I
Haas.
know Jason.
Yeah, I mean, Jason's a sharp cookie, man. He's a chiropractor, but anything holistic, he knows his nutrition, he knows his physiology, and of interest, he lives in Colorado.
Perfect. Hey, let me call Steve real quick and just tell him to push this back 5 minutes because I want to ask you a couple more questions. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Okay. You know Steve, right?
Yep.
I got my old trusty phone book right here.
Yeah,
You know me, I'm old school, dude.
right.
But
Yeah,
I want to touch on what I want you kind of to talk about at CalJam. And, oh shit, I got to put this thing under here. And I want to get your feedback real quick before we jump off of here. Can you give me like 10 more minutes? Okay, because I'm on with Deed and we're just fucking right. Okay, we're in the middle of a great conversation here. So give me 10 more minutes. All right, love you, bro. All right, that's done. Cannabis, chiropractic. These are my things that I'm going to talk about at the Truth About Cancer, and postural. But here's the deal. I'm not saying you're doing this to treat cancer. I'm saying everybody, in my opinion, if you want to live at a higher expression, should eat a clean diet. You know, and there's a lot of variables on what's considered I mean, I just watched What the Health, the video on that. I just read the book, The Plant Paradox, which talks about lectins and all that shit. You know, so there's all of these differences. I mean, then I have a conversation with Chestnut, and he thinks it's all bullshit. So, and I don't want to tell you about his opinion on cannabis, but but that's the beauty of having different opinions and having conversations with people, because it moves us forward as a human race. And that's one of the things. It's like, we've never done learning. I mean, just like I remember back in the days, the healthy diet was a macrobiotic, and then we went no fat and low fat, and now it's paleo, and wherever we're going to go from there, who knows? Now it's plant paradox. But there's things that I feel that let's talk about your dental roll, because that's what I want you to talk about at CalJam. I want you to maybe introduce to the audience and the chiropractors, because I mean, our goal is to have 500 general public there this year. We had 400 last year. I want people to understand chiropractic, something like brushing your teeth. It's not something that you just do when you have neck pain or back pain. It's something that is part of your really daily. I mean, because look, we all sit too much. Number one, so that's like people go, well, what, paleo guys didn't have chiropractors. Well, paleo dudes didn't sit all friggin' day, and they weren't maybe they were under stress. I don't know, but yeah, probably they had some stress about just survival. But let's discuss who would benefit from using your appliance, the dental roll, which all of our patients use. And tell me if that's wrong or right. I lay on it and I meditate on it. I do my meditation on that every day. And I do a half hour, which sometimes can be difficult, but I have a good curve in my neck. Why don't you explain who could benefit from it and why you think people could benefit from it?
I think that's great. I want to say one thing before I do that, Billy. What you've said, I want to summarize what we've just talked about, just in a statement. There's one thing that all great clinicians have in common. If you're a clinician, a chiropractor out there, and you're a great clinician, and that encompasses men and women and young students and older docs. If you're a great clinician, there's one thing we have in common: the desire to help the person in front of us. And
it's not make money. It's not just dig in their pocketbook and bilk an insurance company.
No, those are crap shit clinicians.
Right.
So the great clinicians, we have one thing in common: we want to help the person in front of us, and we will find a way. And if one way doesn't work, we will find something else. That's what drives us.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what we did. It matters what the outcome is. Right. And so I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, it doesn't matter if it's hemp oil. It doesn't matter if it's nutraceutical. It doesn't matter if it's chiropractic. It doesn't matter if it's take an x-ray, correct their neck curve, whatever it is. If it helps the person, you did your job.
Right.
So the dental roll, the Denerol is a tool to help us with the sagittal plane profile. So the people that should not use Denerols are people that A, already have too much curve, or B,
But
maybe
how
have a
often does that
certain,
happen?
yeah, it's not real
It's not.
common.
I would say it's less than 1%.
Yeah, in the low back, it's more common. In
Oh
the
yeah, of
cervical
course.
spine, it's very rare.
Right.
So, people that have loss of their sagittal plane curvatures, if they're, an indicator for what we are doing with this Denerol, which there's people that, I got to say this, Billy, there's 60 to 70% of people are candidates for the Denerol. There's a percent that's not because they have like major stenosis or a major disc herniation, and you can't do any extension with them at first. So we know that it's got to be a prescription-based tool. So the
Okay,
public
good.
can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good
So
clarification on it.
right. So the public can't just buy it at Walmart or Amazon because they may not be a candidate for it.
Okay, but
Right.
that would
And
be true of a cervical pillow then, if you really
uh,
think about it. I mean,
yes, except for the cervical pillows not taking them into the type of hyperextension that
right,
the
right.
Denerol is.
They're not. It's not as. I mean, you're not getting the same dramatic effect, correct?
That's right.
Right.
And so this goes to an X-ray. You have to have an X-ray on every single patient. That's the only way you can see, hey, do they need a Denerol, right?
Right. Right.
Only way. And we have to perform a proper examination. That's what makes us a doctor of chiropractic and not, a voodoo witch doctor of chiropractic, right?
So what I'm hearing from you is that if we're going to be speaking to the general public on restoration of the cervical curve, which I'm a proponent of, I mean, like you said that really, really well at the one Cal Jam. You said, I mean, you basically said this ain't fucking rocket science. I think that was your exact words. I mean, you showed
Right.
this is what the spine's supposed to look like from the front, and this is what it's supposed to look like from the side. I mean, and I friggin' laughed my ass off. I mean, I was like, because you and I think Cheston are two of my favorite white comedians, if I can say that. Because you're both super smart, you know what I mean? But then you're at the same time you got that really witty sense of humor that comes with being smart. But yeah, I mean, how would we assess other than taking an X-ray on whether a person needs to use the Denerol? I mean, it's just
That's
like
right.
you go to the dentist. Are they pretty soon you're going to go to the dentist? Okay, we can't take X-rays on you because this association is in bed with the fucking insurance companies and they don't want to pay for any more X-rays. So basically, that's what you kind of said, and
That's right.
Your conspirational thinking there. I don't know if that's a word. I just made a word up. I'll look that up after we get done. I'll Google it. So, yeah, but that's also at the same time going to get people to understand that maybe they should have a spinal exam to see what their neck looks like.
Amen. 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 Here's the kicker. I'm going to cover 2 new projects that my team and I have done.
Now you can't go like over people's heads. Like
I
you
won't.
can't be talking about XYZ, shit that like everybody's like at the end of the day they're like spent and you're just like, oh dude, you put me into a coma, man.
Yeah. I'll make it easy. I'll have an end statement. Here's what we've identified. I'm not going to talk about anything right now about these projects other than what we identified. A 10 to 20% increase in spinal cord velocity doing curve correction.
That's amazing. So that means just more juice flowing through the cable, right? Is that kind
of? Yeah. Do you want faster potentials or slower potentials?
It's
right?
Just like internet, dude. Just like we were having a little glitch in the beginning there. We had slow internet. He was trying to get through that little pipeline. It wasn't getting here on time.
That's right.
All right. And I want to just reach out to you and to thank you too as far as all the support that you've given CalJam. You're there every year, and I've always loved you. I mean, I know you and I have a few haters in the profession. That's okay. But I'm really grateful from the standpoint that you've been so supportive of what we're trying to accomplish with getting chiropractic to the world, and just your continued involvement, being there every year. And I mean, you and I love a good party, so I mean, we're not going to miss that for the world.
No way. And you know what? I want to say this. I'm so happy to be part of CalJam. Whether you ask me to speak or not is irrelevant. I know that you've got so much pressure on you to rotate speakers, and that if I can speak
understand that because you put on gigs too, so.
Yeah, and if I ever get to speak, I'm honored and blessed. But to me, the experience there is like none other because everybody is in the same room listening to the same lecture. There's no, I'm better than you. and this and that. It's everybody's on the same team and the same level. And as an exhibitor there, you get to hear people come out and say those things. You get to see the excitement on people's faces after every session.
Right.
And then you also get to attend it. So, I walk away feeling good too. And I'm not that person that needs rah, feel good,
Right. But at the same time, there's certain things, there's certain things that you can take home, whether it's, we're talking about mercury amalgams, or we're talking about cleansing and detoxification, or we're talking about geoengineering. Even global issues that, I think we should be concerned as a human species, because it's great to put a curve in your neck, but if we're freaking poisoning ourselves to death, what's the good of it, So it's a reality. And it's not so much for me, and you're not as old. How old are you now?
I'm 45.
Yeah, you see, you're still a young kid, but you're getting older. We're all losing our hair and shit. But it's about the kids, and I know you have kids, and we got to be concerned about the planet that we turn over to them and their kids and the grandkids and all that shit. That's one of the whole things with CalJam. It's about getting chiropractic to the world, but it's also teaching people other concepts as far as health. I care too from everybody. Well, it's not a chiropractic seminar. Well, I want to be different than chiropractic seminar. I want to give somebody something, and I want the general public to come. If it's all about adjusting only, then it's not going to be as much interest to get the general public there, and we're not going to fill a stadium with just chiropractors.
That's right. I walk away every year. I feel good when I leave, and I always learn something. Always.
Right.
And to me, that's the mark of a great event.
Right. All right, I want to have another podcast with you in the near future, if that's possible, just to touch base on a few other issues, because you and I could talk forever. But I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And sorry about the problems we had last time with technology.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, you understand.
Yeah, no.
And I want to come out. I want to speak at the big auditorium you got behind you there. That's where you do all your workshops, right?
That's right.
And how often do you do those?
Well, I do the week-long events that I hold to do CBP trainings. I do it 3 times a year. And in fact, my next one starts in 2 days.
Wow. Yeah, I want to get out there. You have typically how many people at that? 100 or so?
No, I cap it at 60 because I can only truly reasonably handle 60 people in my place.
Okay. Would you ever have me out there to speak? I know we've talked about it before.
Hell yeah.
Tape.
If you want to come out this coming week, Saturday through Saturday, pick a day.
Maybe when I'm flying back from New Hampshire, I'll stop in and say hi to everybody.
Seriously.
All right.
There you go.
All right. I love you, bro. Really, I truly love you, and I love everything that you do for our profession. I'm proud to call you a colleague. I love hanging out with smart people. You and I can hang out. We could go to a few concerts together and have a great time. And next time I want to talk about the whole Science Babe and the Joe Rogan thing, because
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Love you, bro.
Hey, thanks, Billy.
Thank you, bro.
Appreciate it, bud.
All right. Rock and roll.
This is the greatest chiropractic event on the planet.
First impressions are everything, and when you walk in and you see the crowd, you see the stage set up, you hear the band.
The camaraderie was incredible, impressive, and I really felt like I was connected with my community.
Incredible. I've been to 9 out of 10 CalJams. The energy was through the roof, the most electric CalJam I've ever been to.